Five Nights at Freddy's was and still is one of the biggest franchises to ever exist, and a large reason for this has to be due to its dedicated fanbase. In the earlier days of FNAF, the animatronic craze was at its highest point, with people wanting more of the story and even more games to play. This inspired people to make these fan games and has even created a subgenre of the fanbase that we could just call the FNAF fanverse. You would think that these fan games would be just small projects that copy the FNAF formula, but that is so far from the truth. Yes, there are some that are blatant rip-offs that wanted to capitalize on the rising fame of the original games, but some dedicated game designers wanted to do so much more. They wanted to not only create a game that people loved, but could also potentially compete with the original. Here is where we get introduced to one of the most beloved fan games to ever exist. Five Nights at Candy's. It is probably actually better to refer to the series of games as its own mini franchise, as it has nearly 5 games, with the first one being remastered as well. However, it has been nearly 6 years since the last official game. The reason why I say nearly 5 was due to the 4th one still kind of in production, as well as its spin-off. With many people begging for its return and the countless theories as to why all production has seemed to stop for some reason, let us first explore the entire series in order to find out why people love these games so much. This is a story of the rise, fall, and unexpected redemption of Five Nights at Candy's. November 21st, 2014. The creator of the Candy series, Emil Ace Macco, would post a picture of his own fan design of a FNAF character, where he would write this: "Please meet Candy the Cat. He sure would like to meet you." With him also making it very obvious that Scott Cawthon, the creator of FNAF, did not make this, as this was his own fan design. There were also misconceptions with this character since people thought this was actually an introduction of the next game that Scott was making, which wasn't true at all, but that's why he mentioned that. It also wasn't uncommon at the time to make your own fan designs, as many people would design their own depictions of how they would make an animatronic that would fit within the FNAF universe. The great thing about FNAF is how easily people could portray their own creativity due to how diverse animatronics can look. He wouldn't stop at one picture, as he would continue to post multiple at different angles, which honestly were pretty well made even with today's standards, and this was near 2014. This is around the time where he would introduce another character, Cindy the Cat, first teasing the character with just their eye before revealing their entire body. A weird turn of events led to someone stealing his character and deciding to make their own fan game with it without his permission at all. The Return to Freddy's. Oh, and don't worry, I'll be talking about you in a different video in much more detail. Mostly in a negative light. Anyways, this most likely inspired him to make his next move, posting this: "I'm not dead. I'm working hard on something very important. I know I haven't released any new images in a while. This will, hopefully, be worth it." Probably not knowing just how well loved his next project would become. But before it would be made, a couple of days later, he would post a couple of teasers, something Scott himself became infamous for. These teasers showing his fan creations in a dark light with some words sometimes with them, such as "soon," "I see you," and "broken." Like the original FNAF teasers, these ones would also sometimes hold their own secrets. Within a poster about Candy that would say "soon," if you brightened it up, it would reveal a bunch of zeros and ones. But if you used binary code to translate them, they would read out FNAC. Five Nights at Candy's. July 3rd, 2015. He'd released this teaser trailer onto his channel, which honestly at the time, my little ADHD brain and the few 1.3 million people who saw it were extremely excited to see what this game would hold. Even Scott Cawthon himself commented onto his video. The original creator of the game you were a fan of giving support must have been insane. July 18th. Just 10 days later, he would make another post which stated that it was going to be posted on that same day. However, what's the most interesting thing about this post is the part where he said, quote, I only intended there to be one Five Nights at Candy's. There won't be a Five Nights at Candy's 2, nor a third or fourth installment. I will continue updating the game if necessary, but that is all I'll be doing with this game. So, that was a lie, but a good kind of lie. Let us now try and dissect this game in detail, properly. Now, like I stated, Five Nights at Candy's was nowhere near the first FNAF fan game ever made, and even had a lot of competition. Admittedly, most were not that well made during its time, like Five Nights at Pinky's, but there were some treasures like One Night at Flumpty's. Even with the abundance of other FNAF fan games that it needed to stick out from, it blew up nearly instantly. If you somehow had a big YouTuber like Markiplier playing your game, you know the millions of people watching are going to want to do the same thing. It wasn't just fans wanting to copy their favorite creators. You can't make a bad game good just with some popularity. So, let's talk about the character designs. Starting off, Candy and Sydney are very much similar, which is something you won't see much within other fan games. Taking inspiration from the original Five Nights at Freddy's, there are 4 main animatronics that we have to mention: Freddy the Bear, Chica the Chicken, Foxy the Fox, and Bonnie the Bunny. They are some of the most commonly known animals, so to try to create your own unique designs without them looking like one of those previously mentioned animals, or like a knockoff, is quite difficult. I feel as though Candy has transcended from being known as a cheap copy and has become its own character. If you're a big fan of the series, you probably would have noticed I left out a lot of teasers in the previous section, most notably the ones about the other characters. That was done on purpose, as we will introduce each character one by one properly when talking about the actual gameplay of the original release of the game. So, Night 1. The actual game very much takes inspiration from the first Five Nights at Freddy's, with its title screen, static with an animatronic staring straight at us. The year is 1987, near the time of a certain bite.
Was that the bite of 87?
Which has caused Freddy Fazbear Pizza to be shut down. The new toy animatronics are being scrapped with the older ones, hoping to be reused in a future reinstallment of the company. I wonder how that could ever go wrong. So we know that this timeline is officially in the FNAF universe, with the story taking place after FNAF 2. We are currently going to be working as a security guard at Candy's Burgers and Fries, just like the original games. Now, being thrown into the actual game, the visuals are... well, they're outdated, to be honest, compared to today's standards, but this is more of an issue with time, which would get resolved in another game. One Night at Flumpty's was able to withstand time due to its unique graphics, using a much more cartoonish and 2D style visuals, while Five Nights at Candy's attempted to make some of the visuals to look more 3D-like. That is not to say the graphics are bad, not at all. Looking within the camera systems, the colors and visuals of each locations work quite well, with the grainy old cameras causing the older styles to look like they fit well within this world. Though, judging the graphics at the time of its release, it definitely was one of the more visually appealing games out there. Like most early FNAF fan games, there was a phone guy. My favorite part of each game has to be whether or not they have an engaging phone call with someone, but this is honestly due to just personal nostalgia from the original.
Hello? Hello?
Starting the game up, this is what we will hear.
Hello? Hello? Hi? Junior manager here. So you're the new security guard, right? Yeah, it's great to finally have someone qualified for the job, you know? We had to, like, share the shift because, you know, someone has to be here during the night. But with you, now we have more energy to be here during the day. You see, we're probably going to be a lot busier from now on. You may have heard about the place called Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, right? Yeah, they got shut down yesterday. I don't know why, though. Probably something like tax fraud or such, you know. I never really liked that place. I always had a bad feeling about it, you know. Their pizzas weren't even that good.
After this phone call, you will most likely start to look around to better understand the kind of office you are working at. The two doors at the left and right of you are pretty standard in nearly 90% of every early FNAF fan game, though the introduction of the window directly in front of you is completely new, which honestly was just a mechanic probably taken from FNAF 2 with the hallway but being replaced with the window. We'll be talking about this window later on. For now, the doors work like in previous games. The longer you keep the doors closed, the faster they will drain the power. Something I have never seen in any other FNAF fan game, so this is genuinely a pretty unique mechanic. Not only that, there's no such thing as light to shine through the doors at all. All you could do is keep them open or close them. Within the camera systems, there's this thing called night vision mode, which will allow you to view the dark parts of an area, since a lot of the areas are actually completely in the dark. Once again, we'll talk about the purpose of this later. So, Night 1 has two roaming animatronics, those being Candy and Sydney. You could think of these two as Bonnie and Chica of FNAF 1, as you start on the main stage in Cam 1 before making their way to your office. This is a feature that threw me off completely when playing this game for myself. When either Sydney or Candy are at the door, their bodies will not be visible at all, only their white eyes. This is extremely unsettling, and even more creepy than if we had a light to shine on them. Let's be honest, these designs are pretty well made, but don't scream out terrifying. However, these empty eyes staring at you from the dark will make you feel uneasy. This feature is not only within the darkness of the halls, but rather even in the camera system, since like I said, most things are in the dark. So if you're looking at an animatronic in the dark, their eyes will be the only things you could probably see. To stop them, all you have to do is shut the door for a couple of seconds and it will leave you alone. A pretty easy first night. At this point, you might assume that the cameras are going to be pretty useless, since if the animatronics are at the door, their eyes will be shown. This won't be always the case. Now, after beating this night, a cutscene will be shown to us where it appears that we're looking into a room through a camera with the puppet from the second FNAF game looking at us. At least, it looks very similar to it. The puppet model from the second FNAF game is smiling, while here, this puppet is clearly frowning, inching closer to us until Night 2 introduces us to a new animatronic, Chester the chimpanzee. I honestly hate Chester with a passion, and it's due to its similarities with this mechanical toy that will play the symbols. Symbols? The little clappy things. I had nightmares as a child because of this demon spawn, and it got reintroduced because of Chester. Of course, Chester has a guitar instead of that clappy thing, but it still is a well-made creepy design. He kind of functions like Foxy as he starts behind his curtain in Cam 9, before he'll peek out and start to travel his way to your office. The similarities end with the curtain, as he does not sprint and will just walk, kind of like Cindy and Candy. His eyes also being able to warn us if he's at the office as well. After beating this night, we get pushed into another cutscene, though we are unable to see anything for the first half of it, only the audio is available. So far, these two nights are pretty easy and don't really require any effort to beat them, as their eyes will give off their locations. Unfortunately, that changes on the third night. The previous three animatronics will become more active, but also introducing two new ones. The penguin, not only being one of the most unique looking animatronics out there, but honestly is one of my favorite within this game. He is quite different from the others. For one, he does not jump scare you at all. Instead, he will start in Cam 12 and make his way into your office. If you neglect to watch him close enough, he will enter your office and sit under the desk. As much as I would love to get him as a plushie to stick around me, you don't want him in your office. Although he won't jump scare you and end your night, he won't mess with the doors which the other animatronics will take advantage of. Basically being an actual adorable version of Balloon Boy. God, I hate this thing. Staring at the penguin will make him eventually go away, so you better hope he disappears before another animatronic finds you. Now, I said the penguin was my favorite animatronic, but that was just due to its lovable design. Blank is the second animatronic introduced on this night, and is one of the creepiest designs in this whole game. I don't understand it. It's so plain, but so well made at the same time. The children's drawings on his broken rusted skin makes the design perfect. There is also the call at the beginning of this night explaining that it was the previous night guard that caused the damage to Blank. This is the actual first threat introduced and has caused me the most amount of frustration as well. Looking on cam 11, we will see Blank with his head down. Even on nights 1 and 2, we could see Blank, but this is the night where he will start to get up and move around. The interesting thing about Blank is that his eyes don't produce a light, most likely due to how old his suit is. So in order to see him, you will need to turn on night vision mode. If you do not see Blank, immediately rush over to the window within the office and close it down. If you wait too long or check cam 5 when he's missing, he'll break open your window and jump scare you. Honestly, the weird clunky animations of this, I kinda liked. When you beat the night, you will see the puppet's head shaking with something on a conveyor belt in front of you, before shifting to static. The difficulty of each night spikes up quickly as night 4 introduces us to Old Candy. On this night, he will be in the parts and service room on cam 10, where he will peek up from his hiding spot. Once again, he has no glowing eyes as it appears he does not have any eyes at all. So, you will need to use night vision mode once again in order to fully follow his movements. Although you won't be able to notice if he's at the door visually, there can be a mild humming sound played if he's close by. At this point, the camera should only be used to find out where the penguin, Blank, and Old Candy are. The others can be seen at the doors with their eyes due to them glowing, and wasting time to look at these animatronics will most likely only lead to a game over screen. This night's cutscene shows the puppet pointing at the animatronics sitting on the conveyor belt. On the 5th night, the phone guide talks about this mysterious extra door. Kind of weird to bring this up when we most likely never seen it, and most importantly, to tell us not to go into it. This is where we meet the Rat. That is literally the name of this animatronic, just the Rat. The Rat would be leaving from the door at the back of cam 9, the same place we were told not to investigate. He is another animatronic who we would not be able to see on normal cameras as he has no glow in his eyes, meaning night vision is also required. The design of the Rat is quite unique, to be honest. At least for the perspective of this game. The newer animatronic very much take the kid-friendly approach that FNAF 2 tried to stylize within its own designs. But the older ones seem to be much more plain, not just Blank but also Old Candy and the Rat. The Rat has no eyes, no lights, and seemingly no life behind its movements. Although the others seemingly fit within the establishment, the Rat is the only one that truly stands out. Blank is used as a way for kids to draw on, and Old Candy was simply a prototype that was changed for a much more cheery design. But the Rat? Nothing about this thing fits here. It seems so out of place compared to the other animatronics. Beating the night leads to this cutscene, which reveals this date, November 13th, 1964. This obviously is not the same time that we are at this establishment, and we know this for a couple of reasons. Blank's body is completely new, being white, which was what he was originally, as well as not having any of the drawings on him. The original Candy is also with him for some reason. The puppet goes to the camera and is saying, "My mistake," over and over again, before switching to saying, "Your problem." We may have done something, but just don't remember. After this, we get our paycheck and learn the name of the security guard being Mary Schmidt, with an animatronic shadow over it. I wonder which animatronic this could belong to. This would obviously be the final part of this game, but there is one final night. Night 6 is obviously one of the most difficult experiences within this game, as all the animatronics are currently after you. The most optimal way to play this night is simple, but needs to be done quickly in order to win. Look at the doors to see if there's any glowing eyes. If not, check up on Blank and Camp 6 with night vision to see if they're missing. Then repeat this process over and over again. This is a lot easier said than done, as the animatronics are all rushing at you at the same time, and do not wait for you to take a breather at all. Though, after a grueling night, you will finally get this final cutscene. This one seems to imply that these three were the original animatronics used within this restaurant. At least Blank and Old Candy. The rat is tattered and even has some holes, meaning he could have been used in a different, much older version of this establishment. The newer animatronics seem lifeless, but the rat walks around before staring at the camera. And that is the end of Five Nights at Candy's. Now, an honest review of this game. It was generally pretty fun to play, and although the first nights were basically mindlessly staring at the doors since the cameras were essentially useless, that is pretty much expected, since most fan games make the early nights as more of a tutorial to the mechanics. It didn't feel like a clone at all and tried to set up its own story of what was going on with the Candy's burgers and fries. I understand that the creators stated that they weren't going to make a sequel, but come on. Putting this much lore without much explanation about what happened in the cutscenes, obviously people wanted more to find out what exactly was going on within this place. So, with an explosion of popularity and people demanding more, he decided to make a sequel. And oh wow, hype for the game did not slow down. So, after some time, these teasers would be released, which people would assume that would mean that this new game was taking place far later in the future, due to the damage and what the looks of the animatronics. This game would then be released February 28th, 2016. And... okay, so a couple of things. One, the graphics of the second game to me felt like a complete downgrade. This is just a personal preference, but the camera system seems so out of place and visually bad. I don't mean to harshly critique this game since there are many who love it, but the first had this charm that the second one simply lacks. The environment seems so dull. I understand it's supposed to try to make this creepy dark area in order to scare you, but instead it comes out as boring. The reason why the first one was so well designed was due to the camera system having a night vision mode where you could see these empty white eyes in the darkness, and that would cause you to feel creeped out by them. But you would also be able to see these areas in full color. It was beautiful, but unsettling. This game's mechanics and gameplay are also fundamentally broken as well. Fiznom, a content creator on YouTube, would record and beat Five Nights at Candy's 1 through 3 in a 7-hour livestream. During his playthrough of Candy's 2, they would never leave the camera systems at all. Something you aren't supposed to do, but since this game wasn't properly polished, or if this was an oversight by the creator, he beat this game by literally doing almost nothing at all. While also having some harsh words for this game.
Oh, that is so dumb. Holy f***, it was worse than I thought! People told me, no, Phil, you'll feel better about Candy's 2 when you replay it on the stream. F*** you! This game is even worse than I remember!
Enough about the negatives within this game. Let's talk about what we were supposed to do without cheesing each night with its broken mechanics. Night 1, we open up to some sort of chat room between you and someone else. Basically, we lost a bet and need to spend 5 nights at an old abandoned factory. Because, of course, all the cool kids who aren't chicken love to hang out at old factories, where we could potentially die to some oversized animatronic mauling us like a bear because that's haha so funny. Weird introduction to the story, but okay. This is just a small nitpick obviously. It's stupid to even state this since it is just a game, but assuming this is a normal kid who knows these animatronics are trying to attack them, why are they risking seeming less cool to their friends over their own lives? I don't know, I guess I'm just not cool enough to know why. Anyways, continuing on. We don't have a phone guy in this game since that wouldn't really make much sense. Instead, we have these text box that gives us these instructions on how to play. This, I feel as though, makes you much less immersed within a game. I want to feel like I'm the one within that factory, but seeing these text boxes makes it feel like it's just a game, and ultimately ruins any horror this game might have. There are plenty of ways of implementing instructions without ruining the gameplay experience, such as instructions being in the menu, or even having a note on the desk that you're sitting at. Almost like you found instructions from the old workers at this factory, and each night you would find a new note. Once again, this is a little bit biased for me, but the original phone calls from FNAF were made to not only add lore to the game, but also teach you how to play it in a way that felt believable. Now, the actual game, you're sitting at this desk completely in the dark, with your phone's flash being the only source of light that you have to see anything in front of you. We also have this camera system, which I already gave my opinions on previously. It uses a similar mechanic from FNAF 3, although a much more broken version of it. We have no doors to close, so instead we have these phone lines to push in order to attract the animatronics away from us. The only animatronic on the first night is just Sydney, who seems to be missing an eye and cheek. Beating this first night reveals an 8-bit minigame. Call me a nostalgic freak, but the 8-bit minigame scratches my brain in a way that I just can't explain. We play as Chester the chimpanzee, but not the original one. At least, that is what's implied from the posters within the starting area, as they say V2 on them. We walk around for a bit to get the key in the security office, which will reveal that the year is 1989, though we don't know the actual exact date. The original Five Nights at Candy's took place in 1987, so this took place 2 years in the future. Following the layout of this game, we go into the room that would normally be Cam 9 in the original, which is where we see a locked door. This door being the same one we were told not to investigate for some unknown reason, and the same room where the rat comes out of. Trying to open the door with our key simply ends the minigame, and we are pushed on to night 2. Once again, we get a text box talking about Chester the monkey, who will try to go through the vents to reach us. So we need to use the phones to attract them somewhere else. Not gonna lie, most of the nights are very much similar, with every single animatronic being able to be attracted with the phone lines. The night 2 minigame, we play as a penguin who looks extremely done with life. Getting out, we see the door that we opened in the previous night is still open, but closes once we approach it. The goal for this night is to collect the pieces of Chester, who is scattered all around, assumingly broken to pieces by the rats. After collecting the pieces, the game ends and we move on. Night 3. Candy is introduced and once again can be lured away with the phones, so we don't really have to do much at all. The penguin also joins this night, but is like a phantom who will appear on the camera, and if you stare too long at him, will shut down the cameras completely, requiring you to restart it. This is something that I actually like, as the glitch effect is something well designed in my opinion. Though, this could cause a lot of issues if you aren't careful, since like in the first game, the penguin can't directly attack you, but the other animatronics will take advantage of the fact that you can't use the phone systems. This night's minigame, we play as Blank, and need to collect some papers with childish drawings on them. The first picture you can see of Candy and Cindy, specifically stating New Candy and Cindy. 1991, meaning this took place 2 years since the previous minigame. The next drawing we see is of a child asking where is Chester, most likely due to Chester being ripped apart by the rat in the first minigame. Which is honestly pretty weird, since 2 whole years without replacing an animatronic seems like a strange move to make. The third drawing is of Candy and Sydney with the child rocking out to music, with the fourth one being an adorable drawing of the child drawing on Blank. With this, the game ends and we go on to night 4. No new animatronics are added, so let's skip this night and just go directly into the minigame. We play as Sydney in the year 1992, where we simply have to find Candy's tie and return it to him. Not much else is shown within this minigame, so moving on. Night 5 is here, and Blank is finally here with a unique game mechanic of walking around and needing to get lured by the phones. Okay, I I want to like this game, I really do, but the first game felt inspired. It wanted to be a good game, and it succeeded quite well. That's why so many people loved it. But this game is literally FNAF 3 with multiple versions of Springtrap. No new mechanics, no reason for you to even put down the camera, and just mindless push loud phone sounds that are badly designed withered animatronics. Woo woo woo. Are you having fun yet? Is this fun for you? No? Well, we have 8 whole nights of this. I'm sorry. Let's just continue with a night 5 minigame where we play as Candy with one goal: search. We walk around with us noticing there appears to be police officers standing with a dead security guard in the office, with the year being 1993. The reason is unclear, but it appears that most of the injury comes from the head, so maybe something hit him really hard when they entered the office. Walking around some more, you will eventually get cornered by police, and when I first saw this, I laughed since the guy who takes you down has a mustache, but if you look really closely, he's supposed to be frowning, but his mustache makes him look like he's smiling for some reason. Not important to the story whatsoever, but I thought it was funny. What is important to know are a couple of things. 1. The same room the rat comes out of was open and closed itself when we entered the room, perhaps showing that they're responsible for what happened to the night guard. The second thing to note is that these police officers are directly attacking the animatronic, showing that they might know that the animatronics are capable of doing harm at this point. After we are caught, the screen will go black and we get the first official ending, where we will see that the old factory was closed the same year the security guard that we just saw got unalived. In the final paragraph, it reads about 6 casualties that happened within that factory, with the most infamous being a pair of twins that went missing and found to be killed in one of the assembly machines in the factory in 1987. Most likely the same assembly machine shown in the first game's cutscenes. I wonder who those twins could have potentially been possessing now. Also interesting to note is that there are 6 casualties, but 8 animatronic. Let's just exclude the rat and puppet for now, as I have a feeling that these 2 might be part of something bigger. For some reason, even though our character did not need to go back to the factory after those 5 days, they do decide to come back. Night 6 removes all of the animatronics previously and simply has 2, the withered rat and the withered cat. And no, this isn't the old Candy animatronic, even the wiki states it as simply withered cat. The cat will use the same vents as Chester and walk around. The rat does 2 things: walking around, and also sometimes randomly covering up the entire camera with his face, similar to the penguin where you had to quickly switch to another camera or else he'll freeze your camera system. Both of them could be lured away using the phones. With there only being 2 animatronics, this night is honestly not that hard, even if they are much more aggressive. In the Night 6 minigame, we play as Old Candy, which we have not seen at all as an animatronic. We walk around until we see a Shadow Candy? So basically, like the Shadow Freddy from FNAF 3 minigames, once you enter the room, someone starts to panic even though you don't really do anything, and the screen turns black after they attack you. Instead of going on to the next night, we go on to play as Blank before they got damaged, where we need to pick up 5 drawings. The calendar says the year is 1976, quite a few years back in the past. Looking at the first drawing seemed to reveal nothing as they're just normal pictures, but the last one reveals what appears to be Shadow Candy. Until Shadow Candy themselves appears and we move on to another minigame where we play as Old Candy again. The only instruction that we have says help, though it never states anything specific that we need to do. This is also the first time that we're playing a minigame while the restaurant is open to the public, so we see multiple children eating, 1 adult standing, and some children playing at the arcade, all while following Shadow Candy once again. This is where we find one singular child crying in the office, and we notice the year is 1987. Feeling happy, he leaves, and we later find the child again, this scene most likely depicting an abusive father against his own son. At least, that is what's portrayed in the perspective of the animatronic. We do know that these animatronics are personally programmed, so they are most likely programmed to protect children against any dangers around them, no matter what, prioritizing the children's safety over adult safety, which is why we see old Candy charging against the man to protect the child, seeing the man as a threat and only wanting to protect the child in the situation. The year being 1987 most likely signifies this being the incident that the phone guy from the first game described to us.
And in case the animatronics is experiencing violence towards a guest, the animatronic will try to seek out the cause and stop it. I have no idea how it decides to do that, but it doesn't seem to mind it with the children, though. It's weird. If there are children playing cops and robbers, and one of them gets shot, the animatronics don't really do anything out of the ordinary. Except after that day, the animatronics don't really seem to function properly around adults, especially not around the staff. The animatronics seem to ignore you most of the time, unless you come near them, and they just turn their heads and look at you, like as if you just told a bad joke. I don't know, it's kind of creepy. But yeah, we kind of had an accident about a month ago. It seems to have, traumatized their systems or something like that. Anyway, we replaced the faulty animatronic with some brand new ones. Yeah, so he's stored way in the back until we can get someone to fix him. Anyway, if I were you, I'd keep the other ones at a distance, and use the doors if you have to.
After this, we will receive the ending where the factory has burned to the ground, most likely done by our own character, which would explain quite a lot. Mostly why they kept coming back, since they probably had a close connection to this place, or at least a close connection with the animatronics. I'll explain this in a little bit. If for some reason you have the sanity to try 720 mode, where you go to custom night and dial all the animatronics difficulty to the max, you'll be rewarded with one final cutscene, where the cat and rat, super creative names I know, are performing on stage where they are shown to most likely be in a new condition, where this happens. Don't worry, I bet that child is completely safe and healthy and nothing bad would ever happen to him. Purposely, quote unquote purposely, I definitely didn't mess up one night. Dying in this game leads to a page where we will get a news article saying how it's August 2007 and reveals that we were playing as a girl named Marilyn Schmidt, who was a 17-year-old who was found dead. If you lose on a night where the rat and the cat are active, it will say in the article that it states that the scene was, quote, closely resembling a bear attack, and for some reason, some sort of metallic object was the cause of death. This is particularly important to find out about, since the security guard in the first game was Mary Schmidt, so it's very likely that Marilyn is her daughter, which would give her a reason to feel more connected to this place, though we may not know why currently. So, with the second game honestly being a disappointment due to its lack of any unique mechanics, dull atmosphere, the only redeeming parts of it I guess were the lore and minigames, but other than that, it didn't really feel necessary. So after all that, it kind of confused me for a bit. The Candy series is well loved, and it couldn't have just been one of the games. Candy 1 is admittedly pretty fun to play, with Candy 2 being a major disappointment. So with this game being so well loved by the community, was it just the first game that made it viewed like that? Well, to answer that question, we have to move on to the third and final game, Five Nights at Candy's 3. The way I'm going to describe this is in no way to demean the creator's works at all. Five Nights at Candy's 1 was very much inspired by FNAF 1 and 2, with Five Nights at Candy's 2 being inspired by FNAF 3. Although they did have their differences, it was very much obvious from their game mechanics and visuals where they were taking inspiration from. Just look at the character designs from FNAF 2 and look at Candy. This is not to say that Candy isn't unique, and I am no way calling it a ripoff, but it was very much similar. My god, the creator woke up one morning and kicked his brain up to maximum overdrive, since they decided this third game was going to be something major, something people need to lose sleep over, something to make you truly terrified by. This was a game I genuinely really loved. June 19th, 2016, the trailer would be released. With the 2 other games, the final release of the games would be released soon after the trailers, but he wanted to make sure that this game was something to be proud of, which honestly was probably for the best. March 5th, 2017, months after the trailer, we would finally get the game, and it wasn't messing around. With no intro, nothing to prepare us, if we just open up the game, this is what we see. We see the back of the puppet's head as he talks to us. I remember what you did. They remember too. You were the reason that we were all there. It happened because of you, and you can't tell anyone. Why would you? It is your fault. All of it. We don't even get a chance to press play, as this is the very first thing that we see when opening up the game. I won't lie. Playing this game for the first time in years led me to forget this completely. When the puppet turned its head to face us, the sound of the creaking caused my heart to drop, tensing up waiting for some sort of jump scare, but nothing came. We get pushed into the actual game with the rat staring straight at us. Already, we know that this game is different from the others. Pressing play will lead to more dialogue, where someone is asking us how we are doing, revealing something that happened 2 weeks ago. Something traumatic. And it involved our brother getting hurt. We have to remember, they weren't real. They were just machines. They wouldn't be capable of causing harm to anyone. Whatever happened to our brother was just an accident. He was just broken. Wherever we are now, we are safe. Do we remember from the theater? The same one we and our father went to a year ago. We got separated from our father on the day when that accident happened. Do we still have nightmares since we last met? Did we dream about the monsters that we drew? This is where we learn we are a girl and are told to face our fear, since that is the only way that we can get over them. Mary is our name. And so we try to remember everything that happened on that day. The security guard from all the way from the first game was called Mary Schmidt, so most likely this story is based around her childhood. Instead of throwing us into the usual room where we have to defend ourselves against the animatronics, we instead start the game off by playing this 8-bit minigame. This is honestly so beautifully designed that I would generally play a game that was solely based on this art design. It kind of reminded me of the older RPG makers such as Witch's House, Misao, and Mad Father. Now, we wake up in this mysterious room where we see this blue origami cat in the middle of it that we could talk to. The same origami cat from the teaser picture that the creator posted. With the green bed and how weird the situation is, we are most likely currently dreaming. Talking to the origami cat will reveal how this is basically this game's version of the phone guy, providing the player with not only bits of lore, but important in-game tips on how to survive each night. This I like. Not only does it not draw us away from the game's experience and immersion, it provides a realistic kind of way of teaching us the game's mechanics. We learn how we got a cassette tape from our father, which we play in order to sleep better. In game, this mechanic is so we can speed up time to hit 6 AM faster. Something I don't think any other FNAF game does, at least from what I played. The monsters all hate light, so if you see them, make sure to flash your light at them in order to scare them off. Unless they are under the bed. If that were to happen, check which side they are on, and then go back up. Go to the opposite side. After this, you will hear them getting up, which is when you will need to turn around in order to make them run away. Some pretty simple mechanics that are easy to memorize. I'll go in more detail about this later. Walking forward, you will notice this white dotted floor that is surrounded by darkness. We are told that if we are on this path, we will be protected and safe from any kind of danger. Though, if we stray away from the white dotted floors, something bad will try to hunt us. This this was a lot more terrifying in game since the quiet music with the sounds of our footsteps are calming and even soothing, that when it gets interrupted, it makes you jump. I was also trying to test out what would happen if I messed around too long within the darkness without actually knowing what was going to happen. I usually only have time to play and record these videos at 1 AM, so being in a dark room while sleep deprived made that hit so much harder. After retrieving the cassette tape that we were told to get, we will finally be able to be put into the first night. Much like FNAF 4, which this game is inspired by, the main game will take place in a child's bedroom, who we know is Mary. This night only has the monster rat, and his design is just... wow. The nightmare animatronics all follow a very similar pattern of being scary, make them look extremely withered and torn apart, while also give them some extremely sharp teeth and claws. Personally, I was only a fan of Withered Foxy before they took away his creepy tongue, but now they just all seem so uninspired. I don't understand what about the design of the rat makes me feel so uneasy. It could be the leather stitches or the unnatural eyes. Whatever it is, it just works. This only gets better, or worse depending on how you feel about him. When he tries to enter the room, you can point the flashlight at him when he attempts to enter to make him go away, but if you don't do this fast enough, he will show up somewhere around you, which will make you have to point the flashlight directly at his face. In FNAF 4, all you would usually have to do is point the light at an animatronic to make them go away, since they're usually completely static, but here, the rat won't stand still, and instead will move around so you'll need to follow his face. This causes the surrounding screens to be covered in this violet color. After a few seconds, he will go under the bed, and we follow the instructions that we were given previously. Check which side he is on, go back up, go to the opposite side, and then wait till he gets up and then flash the light to make him go away. After beating this night, we will be thrown into a minigame that appears to be a flashback. Walking around, we will know that we are at Rat and Cat Theater, which is not the same as Candy's Burger and Fries from the first game, since it appears that the old rat animatronic is here. Instead of actually being an animatronic, it takes the concept, once again from FNAF 4, of being a spring-lock suit, similar to Golden Freddy and Golden Bonnie, allowing the employees to be able to enter inside since they will talk to us. They tell us that we have time before the show to play hide and seek, even giving us an option of yes and no. Saying yes will make them start to count as we find a place to hide. After some walking, we find a place, which in my case was going to be under this table, but there are multiple locations they could try, such as the closet. Silently, waiting for them to come find us. I'm sorry, if I get jump scared, you guys need to get jump scared. I can't be the only one. Night 2 is basically the same as the first night with the rat, just being a lot more aggressive with no new features. With this night's minigame, we are back at the theater and meet the cat instead, who want to play hide and seek with us as well, which leads to the same as the first night's minigame before transitioning into the next night. Night 3, we wake up back in a dream world where the origami will warn us about the cat, saying, "I have bad news. I think the cat is lurking around tonight. You'll have to be extra careful now. The monster cat is very sneaky, you see. He'll probably try to get you from behind." And then they will explain how to deal with the cat, which is very simple. He will appear on either side of the bed and we will have to scare him away with our flashlight when he pops up. With the introduction of the cat, this night could also be nerve-wracking, as we have to make sure not to let the rat get close while also checking both sides of the bed constantly. After a while, we will beat this night, and in this game's minigame, we will meet the Puppeteer, which is also where we learn the name of the puppet from the first game, who is Vinny. So far, all we can really know is that he most likely controls a puppet to be part of this act on stage. Walking around some more, we once again meet the rat who want to play hide and seek with us for the night. If you read the sign near the stage, we also learn that the year is 1961, something to remember for later. Once we find a hiding spot, we once again get jump scared. We get thrown back into the dream world in the beginning of night 4, but we have some new furniture, this old drawing table, a closet, an old toy box, and some others. The cat also acknowledges this by saying that we are getting our memories back slowly. We will soon be able to get rid of the nightmare monsters. Going up, we now have a timer that says 2 minutes, but for some reason doesn't go down. That's because it only starts to count down when we touch the darkness. If this timer goes to 0, a shadow cat will attack us. Going further up, we will see the path is cut off, but we could run across and notice that it continues. This creates an incentive to look around for secrets, and trust me, there are quite a few secrets within this game that add a lot to the lore. Night 4 is basically the same as the others even with this minigame. It's simply harder AI with another hide-and-seek game. So night 5, we will talk to the blue cat again. Tonight's the final night before we get to see him again. It's been an entire week, but tomorrow he'll probably have a solution to these nightmares. Going back to bed and beating this night will reveal some sort of event. A bunch of kids gathered around the rat who will start to play hide and seek with all the children. Usually, you would find a table or closet to hide in, but all the kids already chose those spots and won't let you hide with them. That is until you find a room only for employees that's open, with a rat running out for some reason. The rat looking for us is an orange-brown color, with this rat being a faded yellow. In the perspective of a child, she's playing hide and seek, most likely wanting to be the winner. With all of her hiding spots taken away, she enters this room that no one will ever think about trying to find her. The table has the puppet with the strings dangling off to the side, which we'll just ignore for now. So we enter the closet to hide, but things aren't going to stay child-friendly for long. The rat notices that we walked in here, so he barges in looking for us, which is when the puppeteer follows him in order to confront him, saying he can't come into work in that condition, due to him coming to work constantly drunk. With the puppeteer worried about what would happen if the parents of the children knew that one of their actors was drinking on the job. But ego takes over the rat, as he gets angry, accusing the puppeteer that he's just jealous since he is more popular. The puppeteer tells him to take off the costume to go home now, but he refuses, causing this argument to get physical. A few moments of fighting causes the rat to begin strangling the puppeteer, which causes the puppeteer to push him back. In a drunken state, he falls too far, hitting the back of his neck near the corner of the table, instantly killing him. The cat soon enters the room, with the puppeteer telling him to lock the door before explaining what was happening. It was just an accident. When the cat says that they should call an ambulance, the puppeteer says wait. Blank was always a bit unstable and has been drinking. Let's just say that we found him like this. It would make sense. He simply fell by himself due to him not being sober. The cat didn't want to lie though, and decides to tell the police the truth. It was an honest mistake, but this would mean the end of the puppeteer's career. No, his whole life could potentially be gone. So, while the cat is dialing 911, he sneaks behind him in order to strangle them. Until they stop moving. Continuing to call to the police, he says he just found his co-workers like this. 2 people are now dead within his theater, with 1 child who witnessed everything. A child that only wanted to find the perfect hiding spot to be a winner, but instead got traumatized. We now hear from her therapist talking to Mary, who remembered this event that her mind was repressing, trying to explain what was happening that day wasn't her fault. She was a child who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. There was nothing she could have done to help them. This is the truth ending, where we see a paper talking about how Mary was repressing memories of her past and should keep seeing her once a week to record her progress, while also requesting a meeting with authorities as quickly as possible since they could still catch the true culprit of these murders. Even though they were just a child, they still blame themselves for what happened. And that is why they keep having these nightmares. The 2 people killed are haunting her since she couldn't speak out against her killer, not letting the police know the truth sooner, and thinking she was the reason why the rat even walked into that room in the first place. This is when we play the final night. Monster Vinny is the puppeteer. He isn't dead, but he still haunts Mary. In the game, there is no longer any other monsters other than Vinny, as he will act like a much harder version of the rat who is more aggressive and constantly trying to ruin your life, moving around faster and just being a lot more difficult in general. But after some attempts, we will finally be able to beat him. Continuing the next minigame, which is right after the events of the last one, Mary comes out the closet, still sobbing, and starts to walk outside. Crowds of people shocked at what happened, with police telling her that she shouldn't be in there. She was terrified, too scared to come out even after the police swept the area. We can even see the puppeteer faking his emotions, crying, while explaining some sort of fake event to the police. We get reunited with our father, which is when we get the ending. Finding out she is completely getting over her past traumas due to her relieving herself of any past guilt she could have had, with 2 of her drawings being shown near the bottom, explaining she no longer has to show up for her therapy sessions anymore. Finally free of her demons. Assuming she's in the same night guard that works at Candy's Burgers and Fries, where she would get traumatized by moving animatronics, but yeah, completely free from her past, I guess. Do 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 do. Technically, this is the final game that was ever released from the Candy series, and was honestly pretty amazing. Any issues you had with the original one was polished, the game's code was completely rewritten, and the graphics were... It says here updated, but honestly, this is so amazing. I don't know how else to describe this other than... pretty? I never thought I was ever going to describe a horror game as pretty, but here we are. The phone calls were also completely rewritten and voice acted again with a higher quality, which was a nice touch. If you want to play Five Nights at Candy's 1, just play the remastered version. The first one definitely has some nostalgia to it, but this is a way better version in every single way. So if this game was very similar to the original, other than some changes, why am I deciding to bring it up now? And why is there a section completely dedicated to it? Shh. You sit there and be pretty, while I do the mindless talking about a kid's game for over an hour. Five Nights at Candy's Remastered would be released on August 14th, 2019, 2 whole years since the previous game. Playing it over, the gameplay was essentially the same. When beating the game and looking at the extras menu, however, we could go and see all of our favorite characters, looking at their models while also being able to zoom in on their bodies and faces. I wonder what will happen if we zoom in onto this ominous rat's face that looks completely soulless. This would give us a bunch of random numbers before unlocking Camp 13 for us. If we copy those numbers onto the custom night feature, all the animatronics will disappear, but we get introduced to a new one, Shadow Candy. I'm getting flashbacks to all the edgy Sonic OCs out there, but this series is so well loved, so this is actually a good feature, I guess. This night doesn't really have an official number, and everything is covered with a purple hue. Looking at our camera, we found out that Camp 13 now exists, which wasn't there before, and it's also where Shadow Candy will start the night. They kind of function like Flumpty in One Night at Flumpty's 1 and 2, where they teleport around trying to get to you, and you have to use the camera systems to find out where he is. Sometimes you will need to turn off night vision mode in order to even see him, which is honestly a cool feature. When you do find him, you'll need to keep staring at him so he could fade out and restart back into Camp 13. What's pretty unique about this quote-unquote boss battle is that even if he does make it to your office, he won't actually cause you to have a game over. In fact, he will just slightly jump scare you and disappear. With there only being one animatronic, how are we even supposed to lose this night? Well, every time he does jump scare you, he reverses time to go back by 1 hour, while also depleting you of your battery. Once the battery reaches 0, that is when he will end your game. If you manage to beat this night, you will get treated to this cutscene.
insane or something. Nothing works. I know it should work, but it just doesn't. It's like he's... I guess I just need to sleep. As much as I hate having to spend my time like that. Unconscious, lifeless. Like him. I won't stop until he's absolutely perfect. End of audio log.
This cutscene is actually one of the very few official Five Nights at Candy's 4 teasers we currently have. There was also Five Nights at Candy's Fur, which is a platformer and actually looks pretty wholesome to play, but let's be honest, there's probably going to be some dark content within the game that's hidden. Now, to talk about the final unfinished game of this series. Around June of 2018, there was a puzzle Emil Mako would release, and if you solved it, we would get introduced to this video, which was teasing the idea of Five Nights at Candy's 4. Going to the profile to find out more about this game, we learned that the official title of this game is not really fully created yet, and is still a work in progress. The teasers are quite amazing, as we see Broken Candy with some sort of mini versions of him all around, or maybe smaller versions of the original cast, since this one's ears is round, with this one's ears being sharpened. Now, what we do know about this game so far is that it's a point-and-click free-roam game inspired by Sister Location, but not a full 3D game. This game is mostly non-linear in structure, so perhaps there's multiple endings depending on what choices you make. There'll also be better graphics using a modern software. Candy is actually the main antagonist of this game, which was something not previously seen. There are also minigames which others may say are overdone, but personally, minigames like the ones from the third game are something that I love, so this is a welcome bonus. And finally, this game has nothing to do with Mary, nor anyone related to her, and is instead focusing on Robotics Corp. A company that was hidden in the background in the previous entries. Thankfully, he posted this recently, so we probably won't have to wait that long for it to be released. May 27th, 2020, okay, so 3 years ago. But on April 1st, 2022, we would get the first official Five Nights at Candy's 4 trailer, which showed the game to be stunning.
Alright, so I got this little like weird idea kind of, for a story thing, for a trailer. It's a cool trailer. I mean, it's gonna be a cool trailer, at least I think. I'm just rambling here, but whatever. Stop me if you think you've heard this before. But anyway, basically, so Candy wakes up one day and he's like, he's lost a bunch of fur.
Never mind, it was literally an April Fool's joke and it was him rambling about some wacky story while drawing the characters. With this being a joke, he did actually post some real updates around a year ago. He would make this post talking about how he's happy with the progress he's been making with the game so far. Though recently, he appears to be more busy with the other project that he's been working on called Five Nights at Candy's Fur, which is a platformer I mentioned previously. He would post more frequently there, and honestly, the enemies within this game I love, reminding me of Terraria. As much as people do prefer the idea of Five Nights at Candy's 4, which is noticeable with the amount of people who are following each project, it is understandable he's choosing to start this one since he would say, quote, "I haven't been able to share much about the game besides the teaser trailer, but I will try from now on to give updates when I can. I'm hoping to be able to finish the game soon so I get on to work at the rest of Five Nights at Candy series, which I am also working on still. I know it may seem weird for me to start an entire new game when I appear to be knee-deep in projects, but honestly, apart from feeling like I don't have all that time I want/need, This is how I want things. It's good to be able to shift between projects now and then to avoid burnout, for example. But it also allows me to return to the project with new eyes, which helps me avoid tunnel vision, especially since I am a solo dev on my games, so I could develop major tunnel vision on every aspect of the games. Later continuing. But anyways, this is my introductory devlog post. FNAC Fur will be finished eventually. Afterwards, so will FNAC 4, along with the ports and updates of the FNAC trilogy. I am truly sorry for keeping you waiting all this time, but you'll have to trust me to deliver on my projects. It makes sense that you want to take breaks, especially with a project as seemingly big as Five Nights at Candy's 4. People have an extremely high level of expectations for this game due to the previous entries, and it must be exhausting to think about the amount of people who want more. Hopefully, the creator of the series can be able to create this game stress-free to make something he is truly proud of. If you somehow ever watch this video, take your time. So many people love your series, and we can wait for however long is necessary. This was just a quick dive into the series that didn't really explore any of the lore aspects, but there are countless videos out there that try explaining it if you wish to know more. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below about something you found interesting. In the meantime, I'm tired for talking for that long, so I'm going to take a nap. Peace.